Every single day, Americans crack open over 200 million eggs. Scrambled, fried, boiled, baked into something sweet. It sounds innocent enough until you realize one critical fact: no federal law in the United States actually requires eggs to be tested for salmonella before reaching your grocery shelf. Not one. And if you think labels like pasture-raised or organic are a safety net, you might want to sit down for this. Because hidden behind friendly packaging and buzzwords are supply chains that stretch across state lines, sometimes even borders. Loopholes in regulation allow some producers to bypass the scrutiny others face. And all it takes is one contaminated batch to land in your fridge. One bad egg, and suddenly what was meant to nourish you becomes a silent threat. In the past 8 months alone, more than 170 people have been hospitalized after eating eggs they believed were safe. At least one person has died, and those are just the cases we know about. Dozens of product recalls have swept across multiple states, pulling millions of eggs off the shelves, while most consumers were left completely in the dark. Today we're pulling back the curtain. 5 popular egg brands you thought you could trust might be doing more harm than good. And yes, we'll also show you 2 that are actually worth your money. Watch to the end. The truth is far worse than you think. Number 1, Roseacre Farms. They're everywhere. From the top shelf at Walmart to the end caps at your neighborhood Kroger. Neatly packed in familiar cartons stamped with slogans about farm freshness and family values. But behind the curtain, behind the marketing, lies one of the most persistent threats in America's food supply. And most people don't even flinch when they pick it up. Roseacre Farms. Now, if the name rings a bell, it should. Back in 2018, this company was at the heart of one of the largest egg recalls in U.S. history, with over 200 million eggs pulled due to salmonella contamination. But that's ancient history, right? Wrong. Because this isn't about the past. This is about what's happening right now under our noses in a system that hasn't changed. A system still riddled with the same cracks. Let's talk numbers. Since January of this year, Roseacre Farms has been flagged in multiple USDA sanitation audits for violations that should have sent warning sirens blaring. Not 1, not 2, but at least 6 separate citations across different facilities, and yet their eggs continue to flow freely into major chains, sold at volume discounts and consumed by millions. You start to wonder, how can a company with a track record of endangering public health still dominate shelves nationwide? The answer isn't comforting, because the deeper you look, the more you realize Roseacre isn't just a brand, it's a symbol of everything broken in our food system. This is a company that, despite serving time in the spotlight for public health failures, managed to expand operations into states like Texas, Iowa, and North Carolina. Each time rebranding, recontracting, renegotiating with distributors. Like pressing reset without fixing the source of the rot. They've learned to adapt, not to change. And that's where the real danger lies. It's not just about dirty facilities. It's not just about rodents, poor refrigeration, or waste mismanagement, although those are documented too. It's about the illusion of regulation. The belief that someone out there is watching your food for you. Someone making sure what you bring home is safe. But when you dig into the inspection records, you start seeing patterns. Patterns of non-compliance followed by short-term corrections. Then business as usual. Then another slip. Then silence. And maybe you've noticed. Maybe the eggs you bought last week didn't smell quite right. Maybe the yolk was paler. Maybe your stomach felt off the morning after. These aren't random moments. These are warning signs. And yet, year after year, Roseacre Farms still ranks among the top 3 egg producers in America. How? Because scale protects them. Because cheap wins. Because the system isn't designed to protect you. It's designed to protect volume distribution and contractual relationships. It's designed to keep shelves full, not necessarily safe. And when one company handles over 5 billion eggs annually, the margin for error isn't just narrow, it's catastrophic. One contaminated lot can affect hundreds of thousands of homes. And when you multiply that across a dozen states, what you get is a chain reaction. Emergency room visits, missed work days, skyrocketing medical bills. But the carton, it stays the same, unchanged, familiar. The tragedy isn't that Roseacre made a mistake once. The tragedy is that mistakes became part of the process. Acceptable losses. The kind of loss that gets written off in boardroom spreadsheets but ends up in your kitchen. So next time you see that familiar branding in the refrigerated aisle, ask yourself this. Are you paying for a product or for a risk dressed up as breakfast? We're just getting started. 4 more brands are on this list. And trust me, it only gets uglier from here. Number 2, Black Sheep Egg Company. It looked like a win for the little guys. A regional brand popping up in organic markets and boutique grocery stores. Labels stamped with words like free-range grade A and pasture-fed. Brown eggs and recyclable cartons with soft branding and softer promises. Everything about it whispered trust. But the name Black Sheep Egg Company would end up marking one of the biggest FDA recalls of the year, and not enough people are talking about it. Late September, the recall came quietly. No press conference, no headlines on the evening news, just a bulletin tucked into a Friday FDA update. Over 500,000 eggs were being pulled from stores in Missouri and Arkansas due to confirmed salmonella contamination. But by the time the warning went out, the majority of those eggs had already been sold. Eaten, gone. And that's where it gets dangerous. Because unlike mass market brands that rely on national distributors, companies like Black Sheep fly under the radar. They market themselves as local ethical small batch. But small doesn't mean safe, and local doesn't mean immune. Inspection records show repeated gaps in traceability, boxes without proper lot codes, delivery logs handwritten and incomplete, supply chains blurred between farms, co-ops, and subcontractors. It's the kind of operation that thrives in ambiguity, which means when something goes wrong, no one really knows where it started or where it ends. It's easy to believe these brands are the answer, that by avoiding the giants you're choosing better food, but Black Sheep proves how that belief can backfire. Because the illusion of trust is more dangerous than distrust itself. At least with the big guys, you know who to blame. More than a dozen people were hospitalized before the CDC traced the cases back to a specific batch of Black Sheep's grade A large brown eggs. Symptoms included vomiting, high fever, and in at least 2 cases, hospitalization for dehydration and kidney stress. One patient required intensive care for over 72 hours. But by then, the supply was already mixed with others. The source had already moved on. The company's response, a 2-line statement. No apology, no accountability, just a promise to review procedures. That's what 500,000 contaminated eggs buys you in this system. A footnote, a shrug. And let's be clear, this isn't just about bacteria. This is about the system that allows these brands to cut corners in the first place. Because it costs money to test eggs. It costs money to sanitize equipment, track batches, and hire qualified personnel. But when a company knows that USDA oversight is limited for regional producers, what's stopping them from skipping steps? These aren't rogue operations in someone's backyard. These eggs sit on shelves in the same Whole Foods aisles as brands that actually do the work. They carry similar pricing, sometimes even higher, and yet you're gambling with your gut every time you buy into the branding. The irony: the name Black Sheep was supposed to mean independent, different, better. But it ended up proving the opposite, that the most dangerous products aren't always the cheapest ones. Sometimes they're the ones pretending to be pure. If this doesn't shake your confidence in egg labels, it should. Because Black Sheep isn't the only brand playing this game. And it won't be the last. The cracks in the system are wide open. And once something falls through, it doesn't just disappear. It lands in your fridge. We still have 3 brands left on this list. The next one. You've probably seen it sitting right next to your yogurt and almond milk. Stick around. Things are about to get worse. Number 3, August Egg Company. It's the kind of product that blends in. No flashy colors, no screaming discounts. Just a beige carton, a simple name, and a price that feels acceptable. That's how August Egg Company built its footprint. Not by making noise, but by slipping quietly into the habits of shoppers who don't think twice. But the silence around this brand is exactly what makes it so dangerous. In the last 4 months online, forums like Reddit and consumer complaint boards have started to light up. Reports of strange odors when cracking the shell, lopsided yolks, eggs that look weeks past fresh even when they're well within the printed date. Patterns began to emerge. The packaging might say fresh, but something felt off. Something people couldn't quite name but didn't feel right. That discomfort turned into data. A recent independent investigation by a third-party lab tested random samples of August Egg Company products across 6 different cities. What they found: shockingly high bacterial counts in more than half the samples. One box registered levels of E. coli more than 10 times the accepted threshold for eggs sold in retail environments. The catch: no formal recall has been issued, no company apology, no media coverage. Just a quiet withdrawal of some batches in local stores and a promise to investigate potential packaging inconsistencies. That's the phrase they used: inconsistencies. As if contamination is just a mild glitch in a spreadsheet. But the real problem isn't just about hygiene, it's about deception. According to multiple former distributors speaking anonymously, August Egg Company has been using a technique known in the industry as refresh coating. It involves washing older eggs in a food-safe chemical bath and applying a thin oil layer to restore sheen and mask odor. Legally, it's not prohibited. Ethically, it's a minefield. Think about what that means. You could be buying eggs that were laid more than 30 days ago, treated to look brand new, repackaged, and sold without any indication that they've been handled post-production. And the expiration date often reset. The shell tells one story, the inside tells another. And here's where it spirals. August Egg Company isn't operating on a small scale. Their reach extends into over 400 retail outlets across the Midwest and Southeast, often under private label deals. That means the eggs you buy at a local market might not even say August on the box. You wouldn't know. And they count on that. It's plausible deniability at scale. This is where the loopholes hurt the most. When FDA inspections are stretched thin, when small batch loopholes allow producers to skip regular testing, when labeling laws don't require full transparency on repackaging practices. That's when brands like August Egg Company thrive. In the gaps. And those gaps cost people. Several consumers have reported gastrointestinal distress after eating these eggs. Vomiting, diarrhea, even fever in children. But without hard evidence linking every case to a specific batch, the system lets it slide. What's a few dozen sick days when millions of units are sold? August Egg Company is a case study in everything wrong with how we regulate eggs in this country. And if a shell can be polished to hide what's inside, what else are we not seeing? We're not done yet. Still 2 more names that might be sitting in your fridge right now. And if you thought this was bad, wait until we reveal what one company tried to pass off as local. Stay tuned. The mask is slipping. Number 4, Country Egg. You've probably seen them at farmers markets or on the shelves of budget-friendly grocers. Country Egg. The name alone evokes fresh air, open land, wooden crates, and hens scratching freely in the sun. It sells the image of rural purity so well, most people never bother to look past the carton. And that's exactly how a product like this slips through the cracks. In reality, the Country Egg operation has almost nothing to do with what their branding suggests. Recent disclosures from food watchdog groups reveal that a significant portion of their egg supply originates not from family-run farms, but from centralized mass production sites located in industrial zones outside St. Louis and Chattanooga. Facilities that operate with efficiency as priority, not ethics or safety. The deception goes deeper than just a misleading image. Internal audit leaks obtained earlier this year exposed a troubling practice: mislabeling eggs from different production batches, blending older inventory into new shipments to avoid loss. In multiple reports, the same lot numbers were printed on boxes packed weeks apart. That kind of manipulation doesn't just bend the rules. It shatters any hope of traceability when things go wrong. And things did go wrong. In early June, health departments in 3 states traced a spike in gastrointestinal infections back to eggs distributed by Country Egg's regional contractors. While not enough for a federal recall, the investigation uncovered over 400 reported illnesses, mainly among elderly consumers and low-income families relying on food assistance programs. Most cases involve severe dehydration and fever, with at least 17 hospitalizations. But this isn't just about a few bad cartons. This is about how quickly a small slip becomes a system-wide hazard when accountability is blurred. Because Country Egg operates through what the industry politely calls contract packers. These are third-party facilities that handle sorting, grading, and packaging for multiple brands at once. One hour they're packing eggs for a premium organic label, the next hour for discount bulk buyers. With hundreds of thousands of units passing through daily keeping lines separate isn't just unlikely, it's impossible. So even if a contaminated batch is identified, tracking down which brand carried which eggs is a logistical nightmare. And while big-name companies might have the budget for recalls and PR damage control, brands like Country Egg simply disappear from shelves for a while. No explanation, no closure. You start to see how fragile trust really is in a system where packaging means everything and oversight means little. Where a brand can present itself as small and wholesome, while hiding under layers of third-party vendors and contractors with virtually no transparency. And yet Country Egg's reach is expanding. They've recently inked deals with major gas station convenience chains and discount outlets across at least 8 states. Which means that eggs tied to a history of opaque sourcing and questionable labeling are now being sold next to candy bars and lottery tickets, in places where no one reads fine print, in communities where price trumps caution. This isn't just about avoiding one bad breakfast. It's about recognizing that some brands exist purely because the system allows them to. Because food safety isn't just what's on the label. It's what the label allows them to hide. Country Egg is a brand built on illusion. And every illusion has its breaking point. You just don't want to be the one holding the cracked shell when it does. We've got one more name on this list. One that's managed to reappear again and again no matter how many times it gets pulled from the headlines. Stick around. What's next might already be in your fridge. Number 5, Eggland's Best. Let's shift to someone many of you probably trust already and see why that trust might be misplaced. Eggland's Best has built a reputation over decades. People see the red and white cartons, the promise of better eggs, the marketing about nutrition and animal welfare. All of that gives a warm feeling in the gut. But warm feelings don't stop lawsuits from knocking on the door. In early 2024, Eggland's Best faced a class action lawsuit accusing it of misleading consumers about fat content. The company advertised eggs with 25% less saturated fat than regular eggs. But independent lab tests revealed that some samples contain nearly 2.84 grams of saturated fat per serving, almost double the claimed amount. That's not just a slip. That's a gap wide enough to question the integrity of every label they print. Then came allegations about their cage-free labels. Plaintiffs in Illinois brought forward evidence showing hens were crammed indoors inside windowless barns with barely a square foot to move. Yet the packaging painted a dream of chickens roaming freely through sunlit fields. The truth: many birds never saw a single ray of sunlight. That's not just puffery, that's misdirection. Legal pressure kept building. Consumer advocacy groups challenged Eggland's Best on claims like environmentally friendly packaging and superior nutrition. They argued the company overstated the recyclability of its cartons and misrepresented the actual conditions under which the hens were raised. In short, the gap between perception and reality stretched dangerously thin. These aren't isolated missteps. They reflect the deeper cracks in the foundation of the food system. When brands can twist numbers, hide real conditions, and exploit fuzzy legal definitions, it's not just a marketing problem. It's a systemic failure. The kind where regulators blink, where audits are delayed, where the consumer ends up shouldering the risk. So when you reach for that familiar carton, ask yourself, what are you really holding? How many quiet mislabels passed without accountability? How many factory-bound hens were sold as free to roam? How many health promises were carefully engineered to sound good while sidestepping the truth? Eggland's Best isn't the worst offender on the shelf, but that might be the most dangerous part. It hides in plain sight. It thrives on the assumption of trust. And in an industry drowning in deception, sometimes the smoothest surface hides the sharpest cracks. Number 1, Vital Farms. Vital Farms doesn't scream at you from the shelf. The carton is simple, hand-drawn, almost rustic. But behind that soft design is one of the most tightly controlled, openly transparent egg production systems in the country. And no, that's not marketing fluff. That's backed by data and access, because unlike others, they actually let you see it. Every single carton of Vital Farms eggs carries a farm name. You can look it up, find the exact location, and see a photo of where those hens were raised. That kind of transparency isn't just rare, it's borderline unheard of in this industry. And it forces accountability because when the curtains open, you can't afford to cut corners. Their pasture-raised model isn't a label gimmick. Each hen is guaranteed at least 108 square feet of roaming space. That's not the industry minimum. That's 10 times more than what most commercial cage-free facilities provide. And more space doesn't just mean happier birds. It means less stress, less disease, less dependence on antibiotics and disinfectants that so many others rely on to mask systemic flaws. And when you stop relying on chemicals to hold your supply chain together, guess what happens? Quality improves. Contamination risk drops. Flavor actually means something again. Independent audits in early 2025 ranked Vital Farms among the top 1% of egg producers in terms of food safety protocols. No violations, no failed inspections, no recall history in the past 5 years. That silence in their public record, it's not because they're small, it's because they're consistent. But what might be most surprising is how they've resisted the bait of expansion. In an industry obsessed with scaling faster and cheaper, Vital Farms has kept their network limited and regional. They don't outsource to mega facilities. They don't white label to other brands. That means no hidden partnerships, no shell games. What you buy is what they made. And yes, you might pay a little more. But that price, it's the cost of knowing what's on your plate didn't come from a loophole, a bait and switch, or a forgotten corner of a warehouse. It came from a farm, a real one, with grass and air and daylight. Not perfect, nothing is. But Vital Farms is one of the very few brands that still feels like it's run by people who care. And these days that matters more than ever. One more name left. Another brand that hasn't sold its soul to the machine. Let's talk about them next. Number 2, Pete and Jerry's Organic Eggs. Here's one more name that hasn't traded honesty for volume. One more label that doesn't rely on smoke mirrors or empty slogans. Pete and Jerry's Organic Eggs didn't appear on this list because of good luck. They earned it. Quietly. Consistently. And in an industry where marketing outpaces integrity by miles, that kind of steadiness deserves attention. Unlike industrial giants hiding behind natural claims, Pete and Jerry's is a certified B Corporation. That's not a badge they bought. It's a status they maintain by proving year after year that they operate for people and planet, not just profit. From labor standards to sourcing, they're audited for real-world impact, not just glossy PR. Their eggs come from small family farms, each one carefully vetted, monitored, and supported, not from sprawling warehouses or subcontracted suppliers that change hands every fiscal quarter. That network of over 100 independent farms stretches across multiple states, giving them reach without losing traceability. No co-packing, no cross-labeling, no egg laundering. And when it comes to feed, there's no guesswork. All hens are fed organic, non-GMO grains, no antibiotics, no synthetic additives, no mystery ingredients you can't pronounce. The kind of clarity you don't even get from most premium grocery store brands these days. But here's the part that matters. Most transparency isn't optional here. It's operational. Every Pete and Jerry's carton can be traced back to the farm that produced it. That means if something ever did go wrong, you wouldn't have to hope someone's keeping track. You'd already have the answer. Earlier this year, while other egg producers quietly weathered inspections or issued minor recalls, Pete and Jerry's passed their USDA audit with 0 violations. Clean handling, safe storage, full compliance, no red flags. Nothing buried in footnotes or follow-ups. Even their packaging tells you more than most. Every claim, pasture-raised, organic, humane certified, is third-party verified, not self-declared. Because when you're telling the truth, you don't need to hide behind vague promises. And sure, these eggs might sit a little higher on the shelf, but they don't carry the hidden costs of doubt, deception, or damaged health. In a market built on confusion, they offer something incredibly rare: calm. Not flash, not noise, just consistency. Pete and Jerry's isn't trying to reinvent the wheel. They're just making sure it still rolls straight. And in the mess we've walked through today, that might be the most valuable thing of all. When you look at an egg, you shouldn't have to wonder what it's hiding. But today, too many cartons carry more questions than answers. From corporate shell games to regulatory silence, from cost-cutting shortcuts to quiet recalls, the cracks aren't just in the eggs, they're in the entire system. But cracks let the truth in, and now you've seen it. You know which brands play you for a fool, and you know which ones still stand for something. The rest is up to you.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.